Hello, my name is Sarah Grace, and I'm going to interview my two great grandmas and my grandma. First, I will interview my great grandma, Helen Wiegand. What do you remember most about your grandparents?
Uh, I have never had any grandparents that I know of. I think they all died before I was born. Those days, people didn't live so long either. Farms and overwork, something. Yeah, go ahead.
Where did Were there any family traditions or customs that you have fond memories of?
Um, when we went to the cemetery, and took our lunch, and when the kids got there, they ran all over the cemetery, had such a wild and good time, and we just hated to even go home.
Was that your favorite family activity?
Yes, yes, it really was.
How many people lived in your household
I'd,
when you were growing up, and who were they?
I'd say six.
Do you know who they were?
Uh, yes, um, our four children, uh, my mother and one bachelor uncle.
Did you have any unusual things happen in your family when you were growing up?
Uh, One spectacular thing is, let's see, my brother went to Oak Street Beach and was diving off the rocks, and then all of a sudden he did not come up, and it was 4 days later that they brought him out of Lake Michigan.
Uh, where did you grow up and go to school?
I went in uh, quite a few schools because uh, those days people did not always live in the same building. They, from say May to October, in the month of May, a lot of, like they call them those days, flats were open, and maybe you got for the same price of your rent. You know, usually rent was $35, and but this one maybe was bigger and better, had better things. So by October, if you could get it, people were constantly moving. There was no hardly anybody that owned a house. Hardly anybody that I know of, or bought a house or something. Everything was rented those days. All right. So you, I went into school to the school. Now maybe I was only there maybe 6 months or something on that order. Uh, I went to the school or the parish school closest to the house.
Okay. Did your parents work? If so, what kind of work did they do?
None.
Okay. What do you remember most about your parents?
Uh, there was no quarreling in our house, for one thing. Uh, my mother was a very calm person, and it was all right, I'd say.
Okay. Um, how did you meet your husband?
Oh, this is it. Uh, of course, my girl. At that time, I was working in a box factory, and since it was in the neighborhood, I worked there for about 8 years. But in the first year or two, uh, I was very underaged, and they only would give me maybe 4 hours a day. They had to go with law too, and I would work. but I lasted, of course, by the time I got to 8 years there, I was working full time, you know. And plus, they also opened up a larger place. I work for Jewish people. Also, the workplace, they opened a larger place, and I had like better salary, better time, and everything. But the brunt of it is that I had to take streetcars then to where my job was in the neighborhood, you know, and then in streetcar, yeah, and you didn't get home until late then.
And then did you meet your husband?
Yeah, so on this particular day, um, my girlfriend from the box factory, Florence, her name. I'll describe this Florence to you. Uh, a girl of about 21, bleached blonde, heavy. When we put on makeup, we didn't spare it. We looked like clowns, but we loved it. Oh, the more we put on, the better we liked it. All right, that was heavy makeup. All right, and lashes down to our nose almost. We kept putting on 3 coats of makeup of Maybelline a day, you know, just to get them sky high. Well, on this particular day, uh, she said, let's go to the beach. Yeah. I didn't even want to go. It seemed like I was tired, not in good form. I mean, laughing form. And at the she said, pay your car fare. So I thought, might as well go. How dumb would I be? You know, yeah. So she paid, but we would treat each other on car fare too, you know. All right, we took Grand Avenue streetcar all the way down to the beach, and we got there and we were swimming in the water and jumping waves, of course. And then 2 men come on, nice young men, very nice. You can tell right off the bat, and come on the beach. And I ran out of the water, and the taller one was standing there, and I thought, huh, that's the man I'm going to marry, just like that. Yeah, I knew instantly as I came out of the water. Yeah, so that's it. Okay.
How old were you when you met your spouse or husband?
Uh, I think maybe 17, like 17 going on 18, in through there.
Okay. Can you recall any family illnesses?
Gee, no. When I never thought of that one at all, never in my whole life. But no, I don't.
Okay. Have you ever known anyone that has fought in a war?
Uh, yeah. Uh, my my grand my grand uncle, which is my mother's relatives, uh, always came to our house. He was a Civil War veteran, and uh, he would he he would come like fully equipped as an officer. And when our mother would look out the window or something, she always says, "Oh, here comes our captain," you know. And boy, we made such a fuss over him. He like had weekend furlough, but he's still in my memory as a handsome and wonderful man. I mean, that's the impression. His whole the neatness, the cleanliness, the scrubbiness. Yeah, and that man with that hat at that right angle. Everything about him as a kid, he passed my okay. Yeah, I had okays those days.
Do you have any? Do you have relatives that live in other countries?
No, I don't know of any. Since my grandparents which came from Ireland, pure blood. But no, I guess none of them kind of lasted. I have very few. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all the questions. Thank you for coming here.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Yu.
Next, I will interview my other great-grandma, Lillian Drusek. What do you remember most about your parents?
Well, my parents came here real early from Austria, but my mother came alone, and because she didn't want to marry the boyfriend that liked her, but later on he came here anyway, and they got married. And what else can I tell her? My mother there was very poor, and well, it wasn't my mother at that time though, Jim. You know, and she was washing windows for some rich people, and one day there was a man across the street looking for somebody, and who was it but uh, the fella she knew in Bohemia. And what then? And then she had to give him money for clothes, and then they got married later on.
Were there any family traditions or customs that you have fond memories of?
What's that, Jim? Yeah, well, my parents from Czechoslovakia, they uh, they liked a lot of Bohemian foods, which were sort of a biscuit with filling and poppy seed and things. And they were very poor when they came here, and they had to get a job which was paid very, very little, maybe $6 a week or something, and then gradually they did better, you know. So what?
What was your favorite family activity?
What?
What was your favorite family activity?
Uh, well, a lot of the Bohemian customs were different, you know.
How many people lived in your household when you were growing up, and who were they?
Yeah, we had a a wooden two flat, and we lived in one, and then other people lived in the other one to get some extra money.
Um, how how many people were in the house?
Well, we had about seven. My mother we had about 7 children, and then my father and my mother that was 9, and two. And what? They they had 2 children that died when they were babies. So now what?
Do you did you have any unusual things happen in your family when you were growing up?
Uh, well, I didn't like it because we were very poor. They didn't even have a bathroom. They had a toilet in the porch, and you'd have to wash yourself on with a different in the kitchen, and it was very poor at that time.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Bryan's school.
Did your parents
It
work?
was in Chicago. Yeah, my father worked.
Uh, what did he do?
Um, he was oh, what was that, Jim? He was a machinist.
What do you remember most about your parents?
About his parents?
know about your parents?
Well, they were hard workers, and we had 8 children, and it was it was hard because everybody made very little money.
How did you meet your husband? How did you meet your husband?
My husband, my husband was my girlfriend's brother. What? Was she supposed to go first? Oh, my husband's parents, they all lived across the street, and I was friendly with his sister, and then we got married.
Can you recall any family illnesses?
Is it what?
Can you recall any family illnesses?
What could I say, Jim?
There weren't any.
They were all Bahamian.
No, illnesses. There weren't any.
Oh, yeah, oh.
Have you ever known anyone that fought in a war?
I didn't get that.
Have you ever known anyone that has fought in a war?
Who went in the war? There were 3 nephews that were in the wars.
What war was it in?
What war was that, Jim? The second war of what?
Second World War.
The Second World War. Yeah.
Do you have any relatives that live in other countries?
I might have, huh? Some of the Bahamian relatives.
Have you ever visited any other relatives?
Not the ones that were in Europe. No. A lot of them came out here to live.
Okay, thank you for being here.
Okay.
I've already talked with my great-grandmothers, Helen Cummings Wiegand and Lillian Jerusha Capek. Now here's my grandmother, Gloria Wiegand Capek. What do you remember most about your grandparents?
I really never knew my grandparents. They were all dead by the time I was a little girl, and I do not remember my grandparents.
What do you remember most about your parents?
Well, my father owned a gas station, and I used to like to go there and help him clean up and get Coke out of the Coke machine, and you could put a nickel in the machine and get a Coca-Cola. And then my mom, she used to like to paint and decorate all the time, so we never knew what color the house was going to be, because we go to school in the morning, it was yellow, we come home in the night, it was blue. She was always decorating.
Were there any family traditions or customs that you have fond memories of?
Well, we did go to my father's aunt's house every Christmas Eve. I called her grandmother. She wasn't really my grandmother, but it was the closest family gathering that we had, and we looked forward to that.
What was your favorite family activity?
Well, my father wasn't home very much because he owned his own business, and he would take us for a ride on Sunday afternoon, and we would go to a place called Russell's Barbecue, and I really liked that.
How many people lived in your household when you were growing up, and who were they?
Well, there was my mother and dad, and my brother Howard and myself, and then we had a cousin named Rose, whose mother died and came to live with us.
Did you have any unusual things happen in your family when you were growing up?
Well, I think my brother had rheumatic fever. Oh, I should have left that. No. And my brother had rheumatic fever, and that was, he was in bed for a whole year. So we used to try to keep him company, and you know, they didn't have TV then, so while he had to stay in bed for a year, it was a long year for him. So we used to try to entertain him with telling him stories and listening to the radio with him.
Where did you go to school?
First I went to Jefferson Grammar School, and then I went to Morton High School
Where did you grow up?
in Berwyn, Illinois.
Did your parents work?
My dad worked and they owned the gas station, and my mom didn't work until I was a teenager. Then she went to work for a little while.
What do you remember most about your parents?
Oh, that my dad was a big, tall man, and my mom was a real short little lady. And they were always doing opposite things. Grandma was always painting, and Grandpa would say, "Why are you doing that?" You know, he didn't like her to be doing all that painting all the time.
How did you meet your husband?
Well, I lived right next door to him.
How old were you when you met your husband?
6 years old. I grew up right next door to him, so I knew him all that time.
Can you recall any family illnesses?
Well, like I said, Uncle Howard had the rheumatic fever, and then when I was 16, I had polio and had to go to the contagious hospital, and was very fortunate that I came out of it without any side effects.
Have you ever known anyone that fought in a war?
Not in my family. My mother tells me that somebody in the family fought in the Civil War, but not in our family. None of our family members were in the war.
Do you have relatives that live in other countries?
No, not that I know of.
Well, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.